Welcome, everybody, to the second webinar of the Negosh webinar series. Again, my name is Joe, and I think we have a really fantastic webinar today, mostly because it's composed of founders. And I think anytime that we have an opportunity to really speak to the people who have the vision and the wherewithal to put together these really cool systems, it gives us an opportunity to kind of see where, the thing that Negosh can do for you, as well as have a really good story as to how it's led someone to some level of success. So today we have two founders, Ari Zebresky, the co-founder of Negosh, and we have Michael Lee, the founder of Infinikey. So before we go into a description of the team, I just want to remind everybody that, Negosh, who is Negosh? Just in case you're brand new to these webinars, Negosh is an open market platform. Our whole goal is to revolutionize licensing. We connect brands and licensees. We love to break down barriers. So we're streamlining the way that deals are made by providing this awesome access to amazing licensees, manufacturers, and brands. And we're trying to empower businesses of all different sizes to find opportunities and grow through licensing. So without going too far into this, I would love if our two guests can introduce themselves.
Yeah. So, hi, everyone. My name is Ari Zebresky. I am the CEO and founder of Negosh. A little bit of background about me. I grew up within the licensing industry. I come from a family of toy manufacturers. And the reason I started Negosh came from very early on, where I was walking around Toy Fair. My parents, they started a toy manufacturing firm from absolutely nothing and grew it to be a very large company. But when they were first starting out, they really didn't know anything about licensing. They didn't know how to find the right licensor. They didn't know how to get connected with brands. It took them almost 2 to 3 years to finally get their foot in the door with WWE, and that was their first ever license that allowed them to get to was the first stepping point to get to the point that they're in today. But for myself and my purview, I recognize that, wow, this is such an awesome and amazing industry, but it's so fragmented. And there is a need for something like Negosh to democratize the industry. Fast forward 20 plus years later, started Negosh with the mission to democratize licensing, and we created a marketplace that connects brands with licensees globally for collaboration fielding, territory expansion, private category extension. And now we have over 550 plus brands and over 400 plus licensees consistently utilizing and engaging with our marketplace.
It's an amazing story, Ari. And, the more I get to know you, the more I find out about, your family's story. And having been a licensee at one point, I take that personally to heart, because I think the part that being a licensee is rough on, and I think Michael can speak to this, is not necessarily the time. And I know people think about time contracts and brands and whatnot. It's the time elements, right? And what does that time mean? You just mentioned it took your parents some odd number of months. It took me years just to find the right person. And I think the democratization here has to do with limiting that time, identifying and mitigating the risk of that time that it takes to find the right person. So I love that story. Michael, we'd love to know about you. Please introduce yourself. Let's talk about Infinikey. Let's talk about what you do.
Well, thank you, Joe, for having me on. So my name is Michael Lee. I am the founder of Infinikey and now a new company called MKRO in development of custom keyboard products. My background is I used to be a hobbyist in the keyboard world. This was about 2019, 2020, pre-COVID, where I, just like a lot of other hobbyists in these cottage industries, these kind of small niches, really enjoyed building keyboards, something I used every day in the startup world, 14 hours a day. And actually, the way I discovered the product was I was working at a startup at the time. We were working in Web3, and being on the computer for 14 hours a day, I started developing those panels. And I figured there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be some better products out there. I asked some of my engineering friends, what do you do? You're on the computer all day, more than I am. And they introduced me to mechanical keyboards. I had not really known about these outside of the gaming world. People can think of the clicky clack keyboards that are really loud. But I soon found out that there is a quickly growing niche of people who really love the mechanical keyboards, kind of the way they used to be produced in the 80s and 90s. Now we have more kind of MacBook type boards, but they're coming back in full force. And I started to work with a leading keyboard retailer in this space. It was almost all direct consumer. They would develop their own products, get them manufactured in China, sell them directly to consumers, and there was almost no B2B element to it at all. And after a little bit there, just about a year, I thought, well, if we're making these products for people who already love keyboards, why don't we try to reach a bigger market? Why don't we customize them for different brands and different businesses? And there's probably a larger market that might be excited about this ecosystem. So we launched Infinikey as a specific B2B supplier of these products back in 2022. We only started with 4 or 5 companies that we worked with, and have since grown to a few hundred different types of clients across tech companies like Google and Oracle, gaming, Riot and Valve, with creators and agencies as we produce products for YouTube creators or Twitch streamers. And so basically creating custom products for any brand or community that wants to reach people basically where they're spending the most time today, which is at their desks. And earlier this year, I mentioned we launched MKRO, and that was to help brands who have very little familiarity with these products basically come to us and say, hey, we want to do this for marketing or retail or internally for our events. And our dedicated team will develop everything that they would need for it, including fulfillment, including all the logistics in the back end. And so we've worked with many diverse companies, food companies to gaming companies over the years. And it's been a really exciting time as the category becomes, in my view, something like the new sneaker category or the car category, the watch category, something that people can take pride in. There's no reason for you to use an off-the-shelf black and white keyboard from a mass manufacturer. If you love Taylor Swift, you're a Swiftie, you should have a Taylor Swift keyboard. If you love BTS, same thing. If you have a favorite game like League of Legends, you should have a keyboard that reflects that. And we're very excited that the market is going very quickly, and many clients have discovered us, have worked with us over the years. So that's where we are at this point.
What do you think about, I'd love to see one of your products, and I think we actually can share it. Would you mind talking to this? Because I just found out about this last night, and I apologize, but it's so fantastic looking that I would love if you just walked us through what this is.
Sure. So this is slivykeys.com. This is one of our first major talent collections with a very well-known streamer and YouTuber called Slimesicle. They're represented by United Talent Agency, who we work with. I actually have a license with them. And essentially, this is a kind of a showcase of what we can do, the extent of the collection, desk products like big mouse pads, the keyboard themselves. Essentially, what we do is we say, hey, what do you want to do for your community? What do you want to do with your brand? And we produce everything. You can see on the bottom left, a little artisan keycap, which is kind of like a 3D sculptural key that holds another keycap on top of it. And essentially, especially in the creator world, which we're very excited about, most of the fans are engaging their creators, their favorite creators, or who they're subscribed to on a computer. So rather than the typical merchandise that we typically know, like t-shirts or stickers or keychains, we wanted to make something that fans would use every day, and then also use to engage their favorite creators who are also using these products. For us, it's a really interesting and exciting new category that starts to open up the way people engage with their favorite brands. And again, especially since people are spending more time than ever, either work from home or gaming on the computer or streaming. That's where lots of fans are finding themselves, and that's where brands are looking to really capture the attention of their fan base.
It's amazing, and kudos and congratulations to whoever is doing your design elements, because I look at this and I'm going to be totally honest with you. I didn't know this existed, but what's even more important, I didn't know I needed it, right? The way you have made this so approachable, it is fantastic. So congratulations on it. Ari, I see you nodding your head. Did Negosh have something to do with this?
So we in fact we did. This was early days of Negosh. So Michael discovered UTA through us, and that's how the deal was actually made. But it was when the platform was in its infancy. So when we get into the story of exactly how myself and Michael met, we'll go into exactly, you know, how early on Negosh was when Michael joined. But yeah, this is a Negosh product.
Well, what better time than now? How did it start, right? Like, because this is the American dream. It's about two people who love what they do and they chase it. They chase it as hard as they can and they fight like heck to make it a reality. And I think the reason what makes this story resonate is that we have a niche of a niche that is being successful. And for every subway rider, for every car person who has ever sat through the traffic from their employee job and has doodled on a napkin and said, I would love to make this happen. This is what you guys did. So how did it start? We'd love to know the story. I'm sure everybody watching this who's viewing it now, who's going to view it in the future, would love to know how you simply made this dream a reality.
Yeah. Michael, do you want to talk about CES or shall I?
Let's go for it. Yeah, Ari and I met at CES. This was early 2023, so almost 2 years ago. We were showing with one of our providers, and we had a booth at CES. Ari and Dylan came up to us. We talked to them. We didn't even think about licensing at the time. We had a couple of clients that had licensed properties and worked with us to make products, but ourselves, we didn't hold a single license. We never even had that on our radar. And basically, Ari came up and said, "Do you know about licensing?" This was before the Negosh platform was launched. And essentially that kicked off a multi-year relationship where they helped us navigate through all the potential options. And then now that the platform is live, we have this kind of wealth of resource and opportunity to expand our brand to licensing, which we've leaned into fairly heavily since then. But back then, it was a great time. We got to learn a lot about what we could do ourselves. We back then and now still kind of label ourselves as a B2B provider. And I think that's a little bit different than maybe how many licensees might look at themselves when licensing something, providing for direct to consumer. But for us, we saw it as an opportunity to make really cool products with brands that people love, and then offer that to other businesses who wanted to wholesale or distribute those products. And since then, we've used licenses in all ways of our releases and future roadmap. So it's become a really important vertical, and Ari's team has been really instrumental in helping us set up that next layer of success for us.
Yeah. And Michael and Infinikey, they're the reason why we'll never miss a CES, because it's finding people like Michael, people like Infinikey, now MKRO, that just don't know the value of licensing and are looking to work with all of these amazing brands and access these brand audiences that they could never have dreamed of doing, just because they didn't know how. And so, yeah, we're very lucky that we found Michael and Infinikey at CES and have grown this partnership since then.
Yeah, and then one other aspect I'll mention from that story, I think shortly after, Ari and I both are in New York. Ari messages me after CES, asks me if we're heading to Licensing Expo. I didn't know what that was, so we immediately looked it up. Again, never had no background in licensing whatsoever or marketing on that side of things. And we found ourselves at Licensing Expo with Ari and his team that year, just a couple months later. And that was the first time my team and I got to really experience the licensing world. And for us, when we hear licensing, I think a lot of potential licensees or brands hear licensing, you think of big collaborations with Nike or Under Armour, or big brands that do something on a massive scale for the Super Bowl or something big like that as a marketing push. And when in reality, there's a hugely diverse and at all levels ecosystem of licensing. And we found ourselves talking to reps at Dr. Seuss and Coca-Cola and major gaming brands, and us being probably the only provider in the US for these products, we were having amazing conversations with all of them, very interested in the category. And it just helped us open our eyes to a lot of the branding and product opportunities out there.
So, Ari, let me ask you something. I know Michael was there from the beginning, and at least when it started, there was a bit of a manual play here. You had to make certain calls, but let's talk about some of the people that are currently watching, that are currently who will be watching as well. How do they make this happen for themselves? Do they have to call you? Does someone have to call on their behalf? Or can they just go to a website? How does that look? How hard is it for them to do this themselves?
Yeah, and that's the reason we exist, and that was our mission from the get go, right? To create this marketplace where licensees, emerging licensees, and newcomers to the industry can easily access licensing, easily access the licenses that they want to work with, find the brands, and it's all about transparency and breaking down those invisible walls that are put into place. Because right now, it's very difficult to know who you're talking to, who the right person to talk to is, what a brand is actually looking for, and the what licensing is in general. And that's what we're solving through our marketplace. So now it's as easy as clicking a button. You come onto the Negosh marketplace, see the brand you're looking for, and inquire directly to the decision makers at that brand.
So let's talk about futures then. All right. So last question, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all businesses. Michael, what you don't have to give us exact numbers, and I certainly don't want dollar amounts. I just know you're successful. What percentage of the business, let's just say this year and last year, has the licensing relationships that Negosh has helped you into? What percent of the business does that constitute now? And then let's just look into the future, maybe a year to 2 years. What do you think that percentage of the business will make up for your top line revenue?
Sure. So I think when we started, before working more closely with Negosh, we were primarily doing wholesale, providing wholesale products, and maybe a small percentage of direct consumer with products that we designed or in collaboration with some brands. Again, back then, before we had official licensing documents, mostly like kind of collaborations with creators or brands for one-time collections. Now, I would say licenses and licensed products with creators, with gaming companies is probably around 40% of our development. So that can be a whole different number of things. Like Infinikey will set up a whole infrastructure for their site and directly develop them and sell them. For larger gaming brands, we'll set up a separate site and kind of manage their whole collection over multiple years. And going forward, we can foresee this being easily 7 to 8 figures a year in just licensed product. And Negosh is the primary way that we're finding or being introduced to a lot of these brands. We just signed out with our first, officially through the Negosh platform, gaming brand Tiny Build last month, and we're probably going to start accessing. And this is one of the really nice things about Negosh. Usually we go after gaming brands, but on their platform, they have sports brands, they have, other household name brands. So even if it's not listed there as on the opportunity market, we'll sometimes shoot them a message to say, hey, we make this, we made it with so-and-so brands. Are you interested in this category? And a lot of the time that opens up a much bigger conversation. So going into next year, I think it could easily be 40 to 50% of our top line revenue from direct consumers that we develop ourselves with these licenses.
That's amazing. Ari, sort of the same question to you, or about a vision store. So where do you see Negosh as it stands? Because it has come miles since you and Michael first started to what it is now. I see it firsthand on a daily basis. It literally changes for the better every single day. Where do you see us now? Where do you see us? I mean, I think it's fair to say 6 months.
So where we see ourselves now is we're really starting to create that end-to-end solution that we've always had that goal, which is not only deal discovery, but deal closing, contract signing, payouts, royalty reporting. All of that is eventually going to happen on Negosh. So we are in the prime position now to have that end-to-end solution. We hope by Q1 to Q2 next year that vision will be finalized. Outside of that, kind of looking a year or 2 years in the future, it's really about scaling and growing globally. We see so much potential from the global aspect of licensing. There's so many brands on the global scale that would love to access licensees like Michael, the same way that Michael would love to access them. Now it's just all about making that connection, find them. So that's where I see us going in the next year to 2 years.
That's great. That's really cool. So then I think this is the moment at which we're running with about 5 minutes left in this session. You guys have been incredible. Let's turn it over and let's just see if we have any questions or if anybody would like to speak to the panel. So now's the moment. If you could just raise your hand or put a question into the conversation box, let us know. If not, there's still more questions I have that I think would be beneficial. So do let us know.
One last thing is, as we wait for everyone, I kind of want to just share my screen very quickly and show the beautiful product of that happened through Negosh of Hello Neighbor. So this was recently teased last week from Infinikey.
Oh, wow. Yeah, look at that space bar.
So yeah, it's really, really amazing.
Yeah,
Well, Ari,
Ari builds a fantastic publisher. They have lots of great games. We are already working on products for a number of their amazing games, and we're already starting to see this shift in the market towards accepting this product as something that is not only kind of just made on the sidelines when it comes to gaming, but kind of instrumental in terms of how games launch, how a lot of them become live service. They have a long lifespan. How we fit them into their product cycle. And again, through Negosh, we discovered the kind of interest from Tiny Build and their team, and Hello Neighbor being one of their headline properties. We were very excited to immediately jump into that. And I think all in all, within the first, after the first call with them, after connecting with them on Negosh's platform, we probably had a deal signed within 2 months to go live or start development on products. And now we're already teasing them. This is all within the last couple months, and we're excited. It's going to be another major set of releases from us for their community.
Michael, that's huge. Typically, deal memos, from deal memo inception to the final signature, that's typically a 6 to 8 month thing. So to say that you did this in 2 months is, that's time right there, right? You gain back that time to get to market and do something spectacular with this to earn out the guarantee. So, Michael, the thing I did want to ask you about, and you kind of hinted at this when we were briefly speaking yesterday, is your competitive market. And it sounds like you're in a sea of a lot of competition. If you can just speak briefly, what has licensing been able to do? Has it given you a leg up? Has it given you a place at the table? Are they beginning to react to you? Have they started going down this path? How has your competition reacted to you?
So as people may know, there are a lot of strong peripheral brands in the space, right? Logitech, HyperX, Razer, a lot of whom, people may think of us as their competition or them, our competition, but in reality, we actually work with a lot of these brands. We fit in a really nice space that we're trying to grow very quickly where most brands, most properties are probably too small for these big brands, these big manufacturers to go after. And I think that's really, it speaks to the opportunity for startups like us to say, hey, there are holes in this market. There are kind of demands and brands and communities that are not being fulfilled by someone like a Logitech. Logitech might do 2 or 3 big collaborations with the biggest games or the biggest creators a year. We do sometimes a dozen, 2 dozen a month. And that's where we really see ourselves in the market. We are seeing a bit of a shift. I don't want to put it at the feet of what we're doing only, but brands are definitely kind of taking note of consumers who, again, want something a bit more personalized. They don't want just a blank slate or a typical off-the-shelf product. They want something that speaks to them, right? They're people are buying clothes and other accessories and other even tech products like phone cases that are reflective of their passions and their communities. The keyboard, there's no excuse not to do that there as well, or with their peripherals. So we are seeing some more movement with brand collaborations and licenses, but again, we are operating at a much faster pace, and as a result, we get to come out with so many cool things in the market, and we're also willing to work with in smaller licenses, right? Maybe more niche games, more niche creators that still have very dedicated audiences, but the big brands aren't going to be batting an eye at because it just doesn't make sense on paper. You're talking about licenses that they need to have tens of millions, if not more, of sales return on. We don't need to operate nearly at that scale. And as a result, we get to really kind of break open the middle meaty part of the market where there are hundreds of thousands of brands that are not the top tier level McDonald's or whatever, and make cool products for the millions of people in those communities. So yeah, it's been very exciting.
So you've been able to establish a beachhead and take it over. That's wow, that's amazing. Well, gentlemen, we are at the top of our time, and at the end of these webinars, I'd like to just ask you 30 seconds. Just what do you want people to know as a final thought to Negosh or Infinikey? Who wants to start?
Yeah, Michael, you go ahead. I'll wrap it up.
Okay. Thank you, Ari. Well, as we went through, our team at Infinikey and MKRO, we're always excited to talk with new brands through Negosh. If you want to contact us directly, because we do work in other verticals. Again, we do retail products, marketing products, any and all ways that you think you can use the product. We've probably done a version of it, so feel free to reach out to us. Those include company events and internal gifts and things like that. Merchandise for employees, right, and work from home employees. So we're just really excited that this category is growing very, very quickly. It's one of the fastest growing in the tech peripherals and hardware space. And you'd be surprised the diversity of ways that we've made products for different brands. And we're always very excited to talk to new companies, new brands, new communities about what they'd like to do with this category. And so we welcome anybody to come reach out to me or our team and see what we can do together.
We'll put your information in the description box so people have a way to get a hold of you. Ari.
For us, it's really emphasizing the value that we're able to provide for emerging and new product creators like Infinikey, where Negosh never would have, or licensing in general would never have come into mind if it weren't for Negosh. And that's what we're really providing for these kinds of licensees or potential licensees. And to all the brand owners out there are people like Michael Lee looking for you on Negosh. So the only way to capitalize is by joining.
Couldn't agree more. Gentlemen, it's been a real pleasure to have you guys on the second webinar. I look forward to many more webinars, but this was very, very informational, very inspirational as well, because this is a real life example of how two very young entrepreneurs have made this happen for each of their companies. Thank you very much. And I thank you guests for listening and being here, and you all take care now.